gentlemen, and welcome here to Channel 4 News. I'm Louis Dorch.
And I'm Catherine Boss. Tonight's top stories are hurricanes, specifically Hurricane Irene, which made a significant impact on eastern North Carolina this past August.
Yes, Catherine, Hurricane Irene impacted much of North Carolina and moved up the eastern coast. And two of our reporters here at Channel 4 News were able to catch up with some students that went down there and had an eyewitness account of what Hurricane Irene did.
Hi, I'm Helen Holt. I'm here with Cole Regan, a sophomore at UNC Asheville, who traveled to Beaufort, North Carolina to hurricane chase Irene this past August. Cole, what were some of the effects that you saw from the storm?
Well, Irene had a lot of 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts and even over 100 miles per hour in some places. Flooding was a major concern in a lot of areas, but we didn't notice anything over half a foot of flooding. But the winds really knocked down a lot of trees in the area and knocked a lot of limbs down and some power lines in some areas, which caused the power to go out.
Oh, I bet. Do you think most people were prepared for the storm?
When we rode down Thursday night into Friday morning, it looked like a lot of people weren't prepared yet, but as the storm rolled in on Friday, we had a lot of people preparing, went to shelters and nearby stores to grab last-minute things to get prepared.
Oh yeah, awesome. So what kind of items do you think would be necessary for this type of storm, such as Irene?
Well, if you're going to ride out Hurricane Irene or any hurricane like that, you're going to want to have non-perishable items such as anything canned. Also, you'll want a lot of bottled water because you never know what could be in the water once the storm arrives. You want to have some sort of protection for your house, such as windows. Those are prime things that blow out in the storm, so you'll want to have a lot of protection. Otherwise, just make sure your food's good because you will lose power. And without power, you really can't cook a lot of food.
Well, alrighty, thank you so much. Back to you guys.
Hi, this is Catherine Bost. I'm here with Zachary Hargrove, a UNCA meteorology student who last August traveled to eastern North Carolina to witness Hurricane Irene. Welcome, Zach.
Hey, how you doing, Catherine?
Doing pretty good. So, how did you prepare for this?
Well, hurricane chasing's not quite like tornado chasing. We actually had to start preparing a week in advance. And, at that point, we didn't know if the hurricane was going to make landfall or not, so we just had to kind of gamble. The whole team, we went to Sam's Club beforehand, and we got as much non-perishable food as possible so that we didn't know how long we might be stuck there. So we wanted to make sure we were plenty prepared.
Mm-hmm. Were you concerned for your safety while you were there?
For the most part, we felt pretty good. There were a few kind of little nerve-wracking parts, like anytime you're running under transformers that are swinging violently in the middle of an eye wall of a hurricane, you get a little nervous. But for the most part, like I said, we were in a very sturdy house. It had been through many other hurricanes, so we were pretty confident in our safety for the most part.
So what do you think about the rest of this year's hurricane season? Do you think it's dying down, or does it have potential for more activity?
Well, we've had a little bit of a lull here recently, but it's still very much in the hurricane season. The hurricane season does last till the end of November, so we could definitely still see some activity, and there are some signs in the models that show some possible threats here in the future, but it remains to be seen how realistic those are this far out.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today, Zach.
Thank you.
And back to you, Helen.
Thanks, Catherine. Now our reporter Louis got in touch with Dr. Christopher Hennon, a hurricane specialist and also a professor at UNC Asheville. Louis?
All right, hi, I'm Louis Dorch. I'm here with Dr. Christopher Hennon from the University of North Carolina. He's a professor here. And before he came here, he worked down in Miami at the National Hurricane Center. So, Dr. Hennon, my first question for you is, what was your job when you worked down at the National Hurricane Center?
Well, I was actually hired to work with satellite data and help the forecasters use that data.
Okay.
But I also did some forecasting while
Okay.
I was down there, and I helped answer phones for the real forecasters when there was a storm that was threatening the U.S.
Okay. All right, nice. So, I guess our story is going to be on Hurricane Irene, or an emphasis on that. So when Irene hit earlier this year, or a hurricane like Irene is building, and pretty sure it's going to hit the U.S. What is a normal day down there like? Is it pretty crazy,
It's pretty
hectic?
crazy, yeah. There's a whole separate room for media,
Okay.
and they show up, and so there's a couple hundred reporters and cameras, and they're supposed to be all corralled in their space, but they make their way over to the forecast area and they bug forecasters, and The phones are ringing off the hook. Radio stations want interviews, TV stations, and it's just really crazy.
And so, do you have a prediction for the rest of the year? Like, are we going to get any more intense, maybe hurricanes?
Well, it's rare. We're almost 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
In the last third, we can get some storms, but they're usually fairly weak.
Okay.
There has been exceptions in the past. We had Hurricane Mitch was an October hurricane, one of the strongest we've ever had. Hurricane Lenny was another late season storm, but overall we'd expect the season to be winding down over the next month or so, and we wouldn't expect to have any major hurricane, at least landfalls in the United States.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And that's Dr. Christopher Hennon, and back to you. All right, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. That's your Channel 4 News for Catherine and Helen and myself. Thank you so much for watching, and we're going to leave you tonight with some hurricane tips on how to stay safe during a hurricane.